Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome. We have a few folks that are still coming in. And again, feel free, there are agendas and comment cards up at the top podium if you would like to grab one. It will help you see what we're going to be doing this evening. We have a full house here, and there will be opportunities for you to provide a public comment and ask questions throughout this process this evening. Before we get started, just want to make sure everyone has a chance to sit down. There's some seats over here too if you need them. And there's a few over here in front as well. Okay. All right. So again, welcome. My name is Serena Lino. I'm the Administrative Services Officer with the Planning and Economic Development Department. Considering the full house we have, I have been brought in to help facilitate this evening's meeting, to help guide us through the meeting itself, and to ensure that we have as many public comments as we can possibly gather. We have about an hour or so. We're aiming to end the meeting at 6:15. And also a reminder that this is a preliminary meeting. So no decisions or actions will be taken this evening. And at this point, the applicant has not submitted an application. We only have a concept design review at this point. So this is very early in the process. So I just wanted to reiterate that no action will be taken this evening. Okay, so before we introduce everybody, I want to go through, we have the statement up. Thank you. Let's switch back. Want to remind everybody that in our public meetings, the City of Santa Rosa is committed to creating a safe and inclusive environment. We will not tolerate speech or actions that disrupt the public meeting or may be perceived as aggressive, demeaning, or harmful towards staff, an applicant team, or other meeting participants. Staff will be monitoring this meeting and ensuring that everyone is participating respectfully. If staff determine that a meeting participant is acting in a disruptive or disrespectful manner, they will first be given a warning. And if the behavior continues, they will be removed from the meeting. And if necessary, we may also immediately end the meeting. This is a statement that we do require at all of our public meetings just to ensure that we have a respectful and productive meeting. And so again, I'll be helping to facilitate this process. The agenda for the evening is going to, we'll begin with Kristen A. Tumians, our senior planner. She will be going over the process that we typically go through whenever we have an application. And then we will also hear from our applicant team, and they will be discussing the initial concept of what they are proposing. And then after that, we will open it up for public comment. We're going to be using the podiums at the top here, the left and the right. It's important that we use the podiums because we are going to be recording this meeting, and the applicant will be able, and the city will be able to post it on the website for future reference. So again, it is important that any comments are shared on the mic so that we're able to capture them. We also have provided comment cards for folks that are on the agenda itself. Not everybody feels comfortable to speak up in public, and so we want to acknowledge that and provide an opportunity for you to write down your comments or your questions that we can gather. We have a box down here at the bottom of the stairs, and then Madeline Brown, she will be able to collect them for you as well. And then at the end of the open public comments, we can have an opportunity to review those questions and then read them out to everybody. So again, a couple different opportunities. One will be up at the podiums, and then you can also use the comment cards that are provided for you. Okay, so with that, I will first have everybody introduce themselves, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kristen A. to get started with the process.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jessica Jones. I am the Deputy Director of our Planning Division here at the city.
Good evening. My name is Kristen A. Tumians. I'm a senior planner and assigned to this project tonight.
Good evening. My name is Mark Pilarczyk. I'm with Swenson, the applicant. Hello, my name is Brianna Morrison, and I'm a project landscape architect with Carlisle Macy.
And I am Jim Fain. I'm principal and civil engineer at Carlisle Macy.
And just jumping in with an overview of the Creekside Village Townhomes. This is a project at 2809, 2611, and 2327 Montgomery Drive. And the purpose of the meeting, this is a neighborhood meeting, and it's a chance to hear about a project early on in the process. You get to meet the applicant team and ask questions. You can share your thoughts and provide feedback, and no decisions are made at these meetings. Tonight's meeting, as was stated earlier, we will only accept verbal comments from those attending in person. If you're watching virtually, you are encouraged to submit written comments at any time during the review process. Please send those written comments to me, Christine Tumian, Senior Planner. That's my email at the bottom there. This is KTOOMIANS at srcity.org for those of you listening via phone. For tonight's agenda, just to give you a rough idea of how the meeting will be structured, we already did welcome and introductions. I'm doing an overview of the process. Then the applicant team will make a presentation. Then we'll have community questions and concepts. And then we'll have a closing and next steps. And just a brief project description, the Creekside Village Townhomes proposes 163 three-story multifamily townhome style units on a 14.9 acre site along Montgomery Drive. A subdivision would create a 10.77 acre project site. The applicant team will present that project in more detail in a moment. Here's an aerial location of the project site. It borders Santa Rosa Creek and spans from Franquette Avenue all the way to the Catholic Church, which is the adjacent neighbor along Montgomery Drive. Here's a general plan designation, which is medium density residential. It allows up to 8 to 18 dwelling units per acre. And as far as next steps, this project is early in the process. No formal applications have been filed yet. If the applicant decides to move forward, they may revise the project based on community feedback. If they choose to move forward, the applicant will submit formal entitlement applications, which include a tentative map, major design review applications. Once a formal application is submitted, the city will mail a notice of application, so a postcard similar to what was mailed for this meeting, to everyone within 600 feet of the project site. The project and any required studies, such as traffic, environmental, infrastructure, et cetera, will be prepared and reviewed. And your written comments are welcome at any time during the review process. And the project review process will look like this. We have the neighborhood meeting today. There will be a future concept design review that the Design Review and Preservation Board will review, we think sometime in January, so after the holidays. And then once the applicant submits their project and it's reviewed by staff, a planning commission would review the tentative map, and the Design Review and Preservation Board would review the major design review, so the architecture of the project, the landscaping. And then each step includes a public notice and opportunities for community input. So each step would include a postcard noticing on the site. So with that, that's staff's presentation. So I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Your feedback is an important part of the process. And for questions, comments, or additional information, please contact me, Christine Tumian, with the City of Santa Rosa. My office number is 707-543-4692. The QR code would allow you to sign up for email notifications. It would link to the project website. There's a link on the project website as well that will allow you to sign up for email notifications. Anytime there's an update, I send out an email blast to anyone who's subscribed to that notification subscription.
Okay, and before we turn it over to the applicant, just a couple of reminders. On the back of the agenda is also the QR code that Christine mentioned. Also, too, just a quick reminder, if anybody needs to use the restroom, they are located outside the doors, down the stairs in the courtyard, and the code for it is 1010 or 1010, just in the event that you might need that. All right, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening. I'll first address everybody with the signs here tonight. Our intent is to maintain the parkland area and preserve and maintain the adobe in a similar fashion to how we obtained the entitlements in 2007. So tonight, on a conceptual design review and community meeting, we're presenting a proposal for a 162-unit townhome development within the property. Again, carving out a preservation area for the adobe, as well as parkland. The parkland and the adobe kept the visual site connections from Montgomery and the side street, as discussed in the previous entitlement. And we look forward to, we did reduce the parkland gross area slightly. That will be an item that will actually help financially as an obligation when the property is deeded to the city for the parkland area for long-term maintenance and that parkland obligation. We also have on-site parking both within the townhome structures, garages, as well as on-site and guest. So providing a parking ratio, if you want to go to the next slide, a parking ratio of over 2.5 to 2.66 on a parking ratio to address parking concerns. Again, the overall site plan has roughly 23 buildings and a density of roughly 10.8 to the gross acre on the project size. So we have made a conscious effort on the design front from an architectural standpoint, as well as site plan layout, to create and carve out the foundation area of the adobe and create those sight lines from Montgomery and the side street as well. Again, our proposal tonight is lower count on the total unit count than the previous entitlement. So we were at 165 previously, and our proposal tonight is for 162. On the overall site plan that you see above, you can see kind of what I just addressed, the site angles to the adobe, the additional foundation kind of carve out area, as well as the parkland area that would be preserved. All other items that were previously approved as far as the infrastructure and roadway along Montgomery and the intersections also would be upheld and continued in the same fashion as previous approvals, which meets current design standards and codes. This is kind of a rendered elevation of the product and kind of the call out spot, right? And so again, this has the efficiency of the units addressed in more of a modern style architectural feel, and addressing more of the pedestrian connectivity along Montgomery while still preserving the sightlines and keeping the park and the adobe as the focus of the development. We have, from the purpose of the community and the community meeting, on an architectural standpoint, we included the layouts and whatnot. And I'm not sure that that's something that we'll dive into in depth here, because I think there's a bigger focus on this. But we do have floor plans. We do have things available. So if there's any questions on that front, happy to dive into that. On an elevation standpoint from a product style, again, here we're calling out a lot of the materials to be used, high quality materials and longevity for sustainability. Again, more of a modern but blended feel within the textures of Santa Rosa, and trying to play off of a little bit of the neighborhood feel, but also a very quick connection to the downtown. So pulling both angles at that. And then the next slide shows kind of how that rendered looks with the materials from the stucco to the hardy to the stone veneer. To kind of also pulling in some craftsman style-esque features into a modern architectural layout. And then if go to the next one, that's kind of the overall site plan. Again, we're adhering, a lot of the existing trees in the arborist report, again, will be observed, and the attempt is to maintain as many of those as feasible within the site plan. Also along the back corridor, along the creek, obviously we're not in that area, and kind of pulled everything back to the net acreage to have the least amount of impact. So anything on the landscape side or civil side? You want to chat?
Sure. I'll just comment that to complement the architecture, which includes sort of like front stoops facing into the walkways and the circulation on the site, we will be integrating green space and amenities for the residents who live there. The largest amount of amenities will be in the top corner of the site, which let me get my orientation here. Yeah, the northeast corner of the site. So if you are familiar with the site plan, there's like a big orange blob in the top corner. That's where most of the amenities will be located. And then there will be smaller amenity spaces sprinkled out throughout the site. We will be providing new street trees along Montgomery Drive, Montgomery Avenue to Montgomery Drive. Thank you. Sorry, I have a cold, so some of the words are eluding me. And just to help enforce that streetscape feel that Mark discussed. And then, of course, we will be working on the park site and the Adobe through the city's process to develop the Adobe Park. There's a previously approved master plan. Some of you may be familiar with that. And depending on the final layout of the site, it will need to be modified. And as the developer works out their agreement with the city on park fees and park development, we would work with them in the city to update that plan.
I was just that the project will be following a lot of the original entitlements from Montgomery Drive in terms of its width as it was entitled. There'll be parking on both sides, parallel parking, as well as new traffic signal at Hammond and Montgomery Drive that'll be shared between St. Eugene's and the project. So have a common driveway and kind of streamlined entry and exit there at the Hammond and Montgomery Drive. That's what I said.
Okay, so that concludes the project presentation. Now we're going to switch gears to the public comment period. So if you are interested in making public comment or asking any questions, please go ahead and make your way up to one of the podiums. And what we will do is we will go back and forth between each one. Also, feel free to use the public comment card if you would like to submit a written question or comment, and Madeline Brown here can help to collect them for you. So thank you for that question. Yes, so we are not going to be timing the comments this evening like we typically do for public meetings, but we just ask that you please keep it concise, just to allow ample time for the many questions and comments that we anticipate this evening. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start over on this side.
Yes, this mic on.
Yes.
Larry Carrillo, Friends of the Carrillo Adobe. Yes, we have 162 units versus 165 before. The problem here is that 25 before were senior housing And the current project, as you see it, takes about 1/3 more land than before. It totally shuts off the visibility to the Adobe. That was not part of anything that was approved before. The references by the presenter to what was done before don't match the maps. Take a good look. We're getting the hood pulled over our eyes again in hopes that we'll okay this based on previous approvals. Those previous approvals did not include anything that was presented tonight. We have foundations of the building on the backside of the lot that go right up to the foundations of the Adobe. It is very possible that some of the front buildings and some of the parking shown there also covers foundations that were discovered after the last presentation in 2007, I think it was the reference. The 3-story buildings completely block the visibility of the Adobe. The Friends of the Carrillo Adobe will not be backing this project as it is shown, and we will do everything to possibly stop any portion of it that affects the Adobe the way it is shown. Thank you.
Okay, over to the left podium.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Dominique Zarmak. I live in a neighborhood that is directly adjacent and will be impacted by this proposed development. But I want to start by reminding everyone here tonight that we're here discussing these specific plans with this specific developer because the Archdiocese of Santa Rosa needed to settle with sexual abuse survivors of defrocked Reverend Javier Francisco Ochoa for $5.02 million, which was paid for by the sale of this property adjacent to St. Eugene's, where the historic Maria Carrillo Adobe stands. I think this is a pretty gross legacy to leave for our city. I also feel insulted tonight by the plans that are presented by Swenson. And I think that they came here to play games with our community. And I think that is what they do. For example, in Los Gatos, Mark Plarchik referred to an initial project concept for an 11-story building in order to make the 7-story building that they were actually seeking more palatable to the community. And that's what they're doing to us with this. It's a ridiculous plan, building a 3-story building along Franquette, blocking all view of the Adobe. They know anything less will look like a compromise. And I think two can play that game, and I think we need to tell Swenson to come back when they have a development plan for 50 single-family homes with yards. I'm not joking. We need to stand up for our neighbors who live on Montgomery, whose homes will not only be towered over by 3 hulking stories, but who won't be able to back out of their driveways on busy mornings. We need to stand up for our neighbors on Midway, whose backyards will be peered into by the 3rd-story windows of these buildings, and all of the neighbors who will be fighting to park in front of their own homes because this plan provides nowhere near enough parking for the density. Raise your hand if you park 2 cars in your garage rather than use it for storage. Anyone? Not very many. We don't. Our garage houses our kids' bikes, our skis, our Christmas decor. And if you know anything about that neighborhood that you're building in, it's that we take our Christmas decor very seriously. I get that Santa Rosa has grown and will continue to grow, and I understand that we need more homes, but we need thoughtfully planned, well-constructed homes that benefit the existing community and the residents that they're intended for. And this is not what this plan is aiming to provide. This company has a 1-star Yelp review, and that is embarrassing. People who have bought their units complain about the quality of construction. I don't think this corporation cares about Santa Rosa, and if they must build here, we should not give them an inch. This corporation out of San Jose owns the most important piece of Santa Rosa's history, and for 20 years has done nothing to honor it. Now is the time. Honor it with a park that does it justice. Benches and a playground, thoughtfully planned educational material that honors not only Maria Carrillo, but the native tribe that lived there before. An entry and a view fitting of this irreplaceable piece of history. If Swenson wants to build trust with Santa Rosans, they'll agree to preserve the adobe and build the park before breaking ground on the housing development. We've got one chance to get this right, and please don't mess it up.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Alexa Forrester. I live in the neighborhood just a couple blocks south of this. I agree with the previous speaker that we need thoughtfully planned housing. And I actually am very excited about this project, and I'm so glad that you're bringing it to fruition. There are a few reasons for this. One is that I have teenage sons. I hope one day for them to be able to live in Santa Rosa. And with housing prices what they are right now, the chances that they will ever be able to afford a home in my neighborhood are slim, or at least will be after I die. So I welcome affordable, like entry-level housing for people. The second is that I do a lot of work with the school districts. And right now our school districts are being squeezed by a combination of increased cost of living and declining enrollments. This housing will help with both of those problems, and so I really welcome it. I will say, however, my teenagers ride through that area, as do I, and walk through that area to their orthodontists and so forth, and I share residents' concerns about increased traffic. I would like to say that the only permanent solution to traffic is viable alternatives to driving for those who can and want to take other routes. So I think it's really important that this development be coupled with completing the creek path and a walking bridge over to the shopping center north of it, so residents can take that route instead of adding additional traffic to our roads. Thank you.
Okay, the left podium.
Hi, good evening. My name is Felicie Leach, and I live right around the corner from this proposed construction. And excuse me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if we're too early in this process yet. I would expect an environmental impact study for pollution. I would expect a traffic study. Montgomery Drive is not wide enough now for commuters, people who live there, et cetera. And I'm sorry that people from San Jose bought the property, because all of Santa Rosans really don't want to look like San Jose. All right. The impact of 162 units, that's over 300 people per unit, probably more, probably a car or two each. Traffic, more cars, traffic jams, longer commutes. There's already parking shortages for our existing residents. And the thing that worries me the most is during the fires and any kind of emergencies, we could hardly get out of the neighborhoods then in 2017 during the fires because of the congestion of traffic on Montgomery, on Sonoma Avenue, et cetera. 162 units on Montgomery, how the heck are we going to get out, be able to escape any kind of disasters? I'm worried about the change in the neighborhood aesthetics. I'm worried about the strain on public services. We don't have enough water now. What about waste management, public transportation, a sudden increase in population? It's going to lead to a degradation of the services that we already lack right now. Changes to the character, the potential changes to our property values. 162 units on Montgomery Drive? What is that going to do to the people who own property and single homes around that neighborhood? I have a feeling the values of our property will decrease, and I really don't want that to happen. And if this is affordable or low entry, I don't mean to be negative, housing, who's subsidizing this? All right. And when we're talking about building and development for people who are having a hard time paying rent now, I didn't hear one comment or fact about what about putting solar on these houses or solar thermal? Why don't we use, I heard Mark said sustainability 4 or 5 times. Where's alternative energy in these buildings? It's just food for thought, something to think about. And if something does happen, what's this place going to be like during construction? Anyway, that's where I'm at. I thank you again for having this meeting, and thank you neighbors for showing up. I have a feeling this is going to be a long, arduous process, and we need to keep showing up. And given our comments, constructive comments to the developers that we're sorry that are from San Jose, just kidding, you know, let them continue to know our thoughts, because I think that's what our leaders down there have told us they want. They want us to give comments and be constructive, and let's deal with this project. Thank you very much.
Okay, before we switch to the right side, there were a couple process-related questions that Kristine is going to speak to.
Yeah, staff mentioned earlier that we are still early in the process. This specific project has not been studied. No environmental review has been done on this project. No technical studies have been submitted. We haven't done a traffic study or environmental study on this specific project yet. So that will be done once the project is officially submitted. We're still in the preliminary process. We're having this neighborhood meeting early in the process, so the applicant has early feedback to inform their project. Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and go over here to the right podium.
Me, okay, thank you. Virginia Holt-Steenhoven, I'm with California Native Plant Society and a Santa Rosa resident and a retired anthropologist. One of the things I want to remind not only the developer, but all of us, is that this isn't just about the Carrillo family and the colonial period, but a long period of human history for our indigenous residents, long, long before anybody else from Europe showed up, who tended the land. Thank you. Who tended the land in a way that we have yet to learn in terms of living on the land. And it doesn't mean, I think gardeners understand the tending concept, but we need to, as you said, this is just a preliminary hearing, and I appreciate you holding this. But I want people to keep in mind that there are archaeological issues, there are Native American concerns, and environmental concerns that affect the creek, the air, everything. So if people can keep all these things in mind, that it was really an important critical time in terms of California history and what that site represents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, left podium.
Good evening. My name is John Lynch. I am a resident of the neighborhood directly adjacent to the property, and I've already outed myself among my neighbors as being one who is not viscerally opposed to this. But you said you're here to listen, so I'd ask you to please consider 2 things. As a middle-aged white male and retired archaeologist, I am viscerally aware of how easy it is to erase history. You talked about the sight lines to the adobe. And having grown up in LA, I saw sight lines replaced by fences, replaced by brick walls. The Carrillo adobe is a critical part of Santa Rosa's history. And if we're serious as a community, and if you're going to build on our community, I hope you consider yourself a part of our community. If we're serious about our community, about our history, and about it belonging to all of us, both the Santa Rosa natives and all of the immigrants since 1837, we really need to be thoughtful about access, and sight lines are not it. Building 3-story buildings that block off access to it, visibility to it, really isn't it. we have erased enough history. I urge you to sit down and say, how do we really truly make this accessible? And blocking access to it on 270 plus degrees of its view is not it. The original plan, I think, was much more accessible and was really about this being a part of Santa Rosa's history and available to everyone. The other piece, and this is probably for everyone, is the importance of walkability, right? We're right at the end of the Brush Creek Trail. If you've ever been in that neighborhood, it's just, people are walking, families, dogs, themselves all day long. We block it off a few times a year for all sorts of neighborhood events. In fact, if you're free Saturday night, we're having a holiday event. You should all show up and see what it's like when you've got hundreds of people walking through that space at any given time. There is an incredible opportunity here to build on that culture, connecting us to Montgomery Village, connecting us to the trail. It would be a shame to waste it. So I urge you to please, let's not repeat the mistakes of the past. Let's make sure our history and our community remains accessible to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, John. I did put these down, and I do want to address that because it's not just sightlines. And I'll work with you guys on that because it's not just the sightlines. We are adhering to the park, the setback, the preservation, as we did in the last report and analysis. And so I don't want you guys thinking there isn't access. There is access. It'll be, and that's in the similar fashion. So I'm more than happy to work with you and talk with you on an ongoing basis to make sure that we're here.
Thank you.
Do that? Here.
And I wanted to bring something up that maybe, I'm not sure if this ever was part of any public records in prior versions of the plans, but Swinson, who's owned the property since the diocese sold it, worked with Gil Sanchez, who's a preservation architect, to prepare Adobe stabilizations plans. Those were last updated in 2017. So I have a whole record of those Adobe stabilization plans that were integrated into the park construction design documents that I was working with the City of Santa Rosa Parks Department on. We made it to about 90% CDs, construction documents, before that project was unable to move forward. But on behalf of Swinson, I just want to say that we do have architectural preservation, Adobe stabilization plans prepared, which include things like collecting the Adobe brick dust and using it to rebuild bricks, updating the walls, fixing the cover that's over it, putting better surfacing on that, putting gutters to help direct water away. And then in order to help protect the Adobe from people vandalizing it, putting open fencing around it. So it is still, you have all the views of it, but it's you're not having people come in and damage it, which right now that project site is fenced in. It's overgrown. There's a lot of homeless encampments there. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who break into the Adobe site and provide damage to it. So it is the intention with this project to stabilize that Adobe, to repair it to an appropriate amount as dictated by the research that's been done with Gil Sanchez, the architect. And we do have all of those plans. I just don't know that they've ever been part of the public record. So I do want to let you guys know that that is a major part of the project, and it's not just mouth service up here. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, we'll go ahead and go over back to the right podium.
My name is Abigail Zoger, and I also live in the neighborhood near the site. And I just want to say, just quickly in reference to what you just was speaking about, it might help if you included actual images of the Adobe and your plans in your project images, since there was just a big piece of lawn where the Adobe is. I think that gives a very incorrect impression. But I want to just say that I'm very sympathetic to the concerns people have about the change to our neighborhood and to our city. But I'm afraid that change is coming, and it's coming all around us while we can't see it, which is that people don't move to Santa Rosa and young people leave Santa Rosa because the housing costs are extremely high, and we're losing our young people, we're losing our families, we're losing our children. And that change is happening. It's not something anybody did specifically that caused something with a specific thing that you come to a big meeting for, to discuss the ongoing erosion of our community and hollowing out our young portion of our community. So this building is going to be changed, and it will be difficult. But the change is coming that is difficult if we don't build for our young people. And whether or not I like every aspect of this building, I am strongly in favor of building denser housing. People like living in walkable neighborhoods. People like living in neighborhoods that have transit. And if they do this right, we have Montgomery Village right there. We have Safeway and those other projects very close by. It's a short walk or bus or bike ride downtown. This could be an incredible asset for our city. And I'd urge people to try and be open to the change that's coming, and maybe not the change that's eroding our community, but a change that can build our community. And I don't like change either. I don't want my neighborhood to change. I like it the way it is, but it's not going to stay the same. It's not going to stay, it's going to be older and older, fewer and fewer people who can afford it. And that's the change that's coming. So as a neighbor, I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just briefly before we move to the next speaker, I just wanted to mention that throughout the course of tonight's meeting, we may hear comments from the applicant and from staff to help clarify or confirm or make comments about the questions and concerns that are being raised this evening. It's intended to really surface as much information as we possibly can so that the applicant can really hear from you and provide any sort of clarification that may come up through the dialogue that we're going to be hearing this evening. We also just discussed, and we are able to extend the time to 6:30 this evening to really allow for more time to hear from each of you. So I just wanted to mention that briefly before we proceeded. Okay, go ahead up to the left podium.
Thanks for providing the opportunity to, for all of us to learn a bit more about this proposed project and to provide some feedback from the community. My name is Alex DeGiorgi. I'm a local resident. I'm an archaeologist, and I'm here to speak about historic preservation and the archaeological resources that are present on the property. Years ago, about a decade ago, you guys did some archaeology out there to assess the prehistoric archaeological sites, number 4 that's present on the property, as well as the adobe. Wrote a big report, and that report basically said the prehistoric site's not significant. And the adobe is. On the heels of that, I wrote a National Register nomination for the prehistoric site and the adobe. And I sent it to the State Office of Historic Preservation. They approved it. It went to the State Historic Resources Commission. I went to Sacramento. They agreed that the archaeological site and the adobe are both significant. Those properties are now listed on the California Register of Historic Resources, okay? That site occupies about 3/4 of your development footprint, okay? You're planning to build on top of this village site that includes Native American burials, okay? There's a Native American cemetery there, all right? The adobe itself is a unique historic landmark in our community. It is the first non-native building built in the Santa Rosa Valley. This is unique. It cannot be replaced. There is no other. And building this large development right up to the edges of it would have an effect on the feeling and character of that place, right? You know? So these are things that I think you guys should consider in your planning process. I want to understand if you're a couple of things. given that this thing is listed on the California Register of Historic Resources, how does the lead agency plan to approve a plan that would mitigate or avoid the adverse effects that are going to be significant to this resource? And I want to remind you that if the project proponents are looking to use the recently passed AB 130 law that amended CEQA to streamline housing projects and loosen the environmental protections on these resources, this resource was listed prior to your submission, which means it will be considered in this process. So how do you plan to mitigate the adverse effects to this important resource? That's my question to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, off to the right podium.
Good evening. My name is Amy Sands Carney. I am a homeowner in the Hartley Drive neighborhood, directly across the street from the proposed development. I too recognize the need for additional housing in Sonoma County, and I support thoughtful development. That there will be housing on this parcel is not news. However, what we saw tonight is markedly different from prior approved plans, particularly with the treatment of the park space. That's why I respectfully ask that with any future plans that we see, the commission requires several revisions. One, an increase of parking. This would reduce spillover into the surrounding neighborhoods and mitigate the negative impact both to our neighborhood and also to Montgomery Village, and also address the common sense reality that most of these homes are going to have 2 or more cars, and that, to Dominic's point earlier, few of us really use our garages as parking spaces. 2, we should look at reducing the building height and overall massing. Every single one of the townhouses on this proposal were up to 35 feet tall. That absolutely dwarfs the surrounding neighborhoods and is even taller than the Montgomery Village Shopping Center. The scale is incompatible with the existing buildings. Stepping down the height along the neighborhood corridors would allow the project to transition into the existing neighborhoods with fewer visual impacts. But most importantly, I ask that we preserve the historic integrity of the Carrillo adobe. The eastern portion of the property should be protected as a full contiguous park, just as it was with the prior approved plans from 2007. And approval of the development should be contingent upon developing the park up front, not at an unspecified future date. It's very essential that we maintain access to the portion of a park. This is an important public resource. And as was presented today, it's a park in name only. It's boxed in on 3 sides by 3-story tall buildings, nearly obliterating any sightlines. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us to protect one of Santa Rosa's oldest cultural sites. And I urge the commission to provide access for us, access for our future generations, and to require revisions that prioritize the neighborhood compatibility, realistic parking solutions, and full preservation of the Carrillo adobe site as a public heritage. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Taylor, and I also live in Christmas Tree Lane area. I support housing and I support development at this location. I even appreciate the townhomes. It's a housing that we don't have and it's needed. But the Creekside Village project, as currently proposed, does not reflect smart growth, responsible planning, or respect for prior approvals. The most serious issue is the Carrillo adobe, which you've heard a lot about tonight. In 2005, the city approved a project that protected over 6 acres around the adobe, 2.1 acres for an adobe park, plus 4.14 acres for creek setback and open space. Today, the proposal reduces that protection to about 4 acres, with buildings immediately adjacent to the historic landmark. The developers cannot claim preservation to the greatest extent possible. while shrinking the park every time the project returns. That is not balance, that's backsliding. The history is clear. In 2003, draft EIR studied 6.59 acres for a city park. 2005 approvals reduced to 2.1 acres for the Adobe, plus 4.14 acres for open space. Today, the Adobe Park is smaller yet again, less than 2 acres. In 2020, a document that the developer explicitly separated the Adobe and the park from the housing project. That separation is not binding, not guaranteed, and does not provide public benefit. Once preservation is separated from development, it becomes optional. That is exactly how a 6-acre commitment becomes 4 and smaller again. That brings me to Building 9. Its location is unacceptable. The 3-story building will tower over the 1-story 1950 homes that we live in. Exiting onto Farmers Lane is already difficult. Adding a building here will worsen the congestion, reduce safety, and encroach on the Adobe. Building 9 must be removed, and the buildings surrounding our beloved neighborhood need to be reduced to 2 stories. Traffic, safety, and livability go hand in hand. This project proposes 162 3- and 4-bedroom units, adding an estimated 600 to 700 residents onto roads already in poor condition. It's not just Montgomery Drive, it's my neighborhood as well. The streets, the potholes get temporary fixes. Overflow traffic and parking will make it worse and increase safety risk. I've had my new car for just 3 years, and I've already replaced my tires 4 times because of these streets. The revamped Montgomery Village has added more traffic. We are also a main corridor for Providence Trauma Hospital. You've heard about the emergency evacuation routes. We are all worried about if that day will come again. I understand a traffic study will be completed. My question is not whether it will be done, but whether the city will listen to it. If it confirms serious congestion, safety issues, or other impacts, will meaningful changes be required, or will those findings simply be acknowledged and ignored? We've heard about the access and connecting our neighborhood to the park, and I appreciate that you want to do that. But I do want to reiterate that the park should be walkable and bikeable and accessible to all residents, not just those living inside the development. Environmental impacts cannot be brushed aside. I live along the creek. My house backs up to it. We see bobcats, mountain lions, deer using this corridor. This isn't active habitat. Dense development pushed up against the creek threatens wildlife movement and long-term the ecological health. While the new FEMA maps won't take effect until 2027, this project should still plan for the flood risk, stormwater runoff, erosion, and the habitat protection. Some flooding is already shown in this area with the new FEMA maps. Approving the project without accounting for these new standards will be short-sighted. On housing, this project includes low-income units, and I appreciate that. That really does matter. But it completely overlooks middle-income families. Teachers, healthcare workers, social workers, and public servants who earn too much to qualify for assistance, yet not enough to afford market-rate housing. We are losing them. My best friend is a preschool teacher here, and she's talking about leaving Santa Rosa because she simply cannot afford to stay. Housing that forces out the people who care for her community is not a success. There are proven ways to reserve units for middle-income, community-serving workers, and this project could and should do the same. If our teachers and community workers cannot afford to live here, then this project is not solving the housing crisis. This is not about stopping housing. It's about honoring commitments, protecting the Adobe, preserving wildlife, and keeping our community safe. The developer claims this project balances housing with preservation, but the park keeps shrinking, buildings keep moving closer, and in 2020, the Adobe was separated from the housing project in a non-binding document. This is not preservation. This is making history optional. Approving this project as is a choice. developer convenience over public commitments, development over preservation, congestion over safety. We have housing mandates, I get it, but we must build responsibly. But responsible means honoring historical commitments, protecting natural habitats, and creating housing that works for the community that lives here, including middle-income families. This project, as proposed, fails on all of those accounts. Santa Rosa deserves better. You have a choice to make the right one.
Thank you. Just a quick time check. So we are just over 30 minutes left in the meeting, and it looks to be about a dozen people that still would like to speak. So just wanted to remind everybody to, we want to make sure that we hear from everyone this evening. So try to stay concise with your comments. That would be really helpful. Thank you. All right, over to the right podium.
My name is Michael Keith, and I live on Hammond Drive. And the other day, I went from Montgomery Drive to Lucky's, and it took 17 minutes to drive not very far. 3 days a week, I drive down Montgomery Drive to go to Calistoga Road to my brother's house. And it's gridlock from Exchange Bank to Mission. Sometimes you have to wait 3 and 4 lights. This project is the worst thing that I've ever heard of. The streets cannot handle it. Right now at Montgomery and Wailupa, the light has been flashing for 3 days. When are they going to fix that to help the traffic flow better? So that's all I want to say, is that we can't handle the traffic. It takes 8 months for me to get a doctor's appointment. We don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough stores. We don't have enough services. This is the worst project ever. With the high density apartments that are going up everywhere, if they need a place to live, they can live in those. Thank you.
Okay, over to the left podium.
Hi, my name is Lauren Fury. I live east of the proposed development, and I'm here to speak out in favor of this badly needed housing. Less than a mile away from this site, Herbert Slater Middle School recently closed due to a fiscal crisis that ultimately stems from low enrollment. As other people, even people opposed to this project, have pointed out, that's because young families can't afford to live here. So we badly need different building types. Single-family homes with yards are not only environmentally unsustainable, they're unaffordable to a very diverse group of peoples, young families, elderly people. So I appreciate the effort to bring this housing type to our community. I really encourage staying at the 3 stories because young families want 3 and 4 bedroom households, not 1 and 2 bedroom homes. I appreciate the effort to preserve park access. I agree with my neighbors that we have unfunded infrastructure liabilities in our neighborhood. We have roads with potholes. The way that you pay for that is with property taxes. And new construction brings more property taxes to our communities to address things like aging infrastructure, to address things like traffic impacts. New construction, I would encourage the developer to think about bike and pedestrian connections to encourage people to use alternatives to their car to get around. So thank you for your time.
Okay, over to the right podium.
Hello, I'm Darlene Wall, and I've been a long-time resident of Santa Rosa for over 50 years. Our house is just behind the Adobe on Hermit Drive. I would like to say that traffic, of course, is a major consideration, but above that is the historical and respect of the Adobe. It has been allowed to become not what it was when we first moved here. And the whole orchard, the whole area that has been just not, and since Swenson has owned it, it has been allowed to fall into disrepair. And not many of the walnut trees, if there are any, are left. I welcome the development that was first proposed, and I'm disappointed that it hasn't been gone through and worked on so that the whole orchard didn't fall into such disrespect, and that the whole area became a living place for the homeless. And I'm sorry. I ask for respect for the Creo adobe and for our heritage here in Santa Rosa. So.
Okay, go ahead. Left podium.
Hello, my name is Frank Baumgartner. I don't live in the area. I do live in Santa Rosa, however, and I'd like to echo the comments of the previous gentleman who was and I guess archaeologist, because I feel like the adobe is a treasure that's long gone, too long, been forgotten and left to kind of just sit there. And I realize the city of Santa Rosa has tons of costs and priorities that may take precedent over education and preserving our culture. But I remember interviewing one of the Carrillo family members who's no longer with us, and he was explaining the whole story of Maria Carrillo and how she pushed. I'm not saying she pushed, she probably rode an ox cart, because in those days, that's how women got around, ox carts. But all the way from the Los Angeles area, if you can imagine, all the way up here. I don't know how much help she got, but she arrived here and she established the first trading post of any kind of resident, or I'm sorry, descendants of people from Europe, originally descended from, of course, Spain. However, the point is that, you know, she made an impact here, and wonder of wonders has been forgotten and left out of the state park system. I can't understand why, you know, that's been allowed to happen, because there are plenty of other sites that are preserved, including Lola Montez, you know, her home, that are state parks in this state. However, Maria Carrillo has been forgotten. So I'd like to see this become a museum, not just a park, or not only a park. And possibly I would think maybe the Sonoma County system of parks might be a better choice than the city, given the fact that they're so short of money, because I doubt that they're going to provide any money to really do this job right. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, my name is Nate. I want to commend my neighbors for such respectful dialogue tonight. Thank you all for being here. I'm somebody that completely understands that change is inevitable and that we do have a housing crisis. This directly impacts me, that intersection at the corner of Hammond and Montgomery. We have Exchange Bank, we have the church, we have the new proposed development, and that fourth house there on the corner is mine that I've owned for the last 11 years. And I've seen, I just want to comment on the traffic and the parking situation there. And I really have a question for my own learning here. Anecdotally, I can share, and I know that there's not a traffic study done yet. There's lots of accidents at that intersection that I've witnessed over the last 11 years that I've lived there. Traffic is not good. Parking is very difficult to come by on Montgomery Drive. And so I just want to echo what my neighbors have shared about that. And so my question really has to do with the traffic study. Are we able to view the results of that study? Is there a standard that is set that we're trying to meet? If that standard is not met, what is the strategy for mitigation? Does the developer have any obligation to help there? And if we're not able to meet that standard, does the development continue to be produced? Those are just questions that I have for my own knowledge, just because I've never been involved here. So just want to, echo what my neighbors are saying about the severe traffic problem we have. This is a corridor, ambulance corridor, and it's not great already. So that's my question.
Yeah, so there would be a traffic study required for this project. It would evaluate the impact of this project to the neighborhood, and it would evaluate any safety concerns that would result from this project being constructed, and would make recommendations on how to improve the road network, not just for vehicles, but for pedestrians and bicycles. So it would make recommendations and also recommendations for transit as well. So it might recommend either a bus stop or improvements to the bus stop, improvements for ADA accessibility, sidewalks, sight lines, visibility from driveways, things like that.
And so
And it would be, it would be publicly, once the study is completed, it's all public information, so anyone can review it.
Thank you. So just to clarify, the recommendations not mandated to follow through with the recommendations for the development to proceed.
So if there are safety recommendations, we would mandate them. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move over to the left podium and just another quick time check for folks. It's 6:10, so we have about 20 more minutes.
Thank you. My name is Leslie Ann Gibbons, and I've lived with my family in Montgomery Village since 2001. And I currently live on Christmas Tree Lane with Santa himself. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this application. Montgomery Village is a unique and intentional part of Santa Rosa. It was developed as a true village neighborhood defined by single-story homes, walkability, and a consistent scale that has endured for decades. That character is established and well-known. Swinson was fully aware of the context of this area when the land was purchased. Presenting a project of this scale suggests a complete disregard for that regality and for our community's understanding of its own neighborhood. The proposal introduces a scale and form that is disconnected from what Montgomery Village has always been. And let's not be misled, the majority of these homes will not be affordable to our children and the community workers we need to preserve. Any development in Montgomery Village should respond to its history, its pattern, and it should not attempt to redefine it with a scale that could exist anywhere. Growth here should reinforce our identity and not overwrite it. Thank you.
Okay, over to the right podium.
Hi, my name is Jed Parker. I'm a neighbor of the area. I came here because I'm a YIMBY. Yes, please do it in my backyard. From my perspective, over the last 20 or, 100 years, we've gotten to this place where we are because nobody wants nobody wants things to change. And things inevitably change. So how do we do that respectfully to the archaeological site, which personally I care about a little more than the Creo thing. I know I'm going to get blasted for it, but that's my opinion. And how do we do that with an eye towards the future? The fiscal future for the city. How do we do it so
Can
that
you
we,
speak into the mic just a little bit
Sorry.
more? Thank you.
yeah. How do we do this planning with an eye towards the future versus an eye towards the past? Yes, the past is important. Nobody wants change, especially the closer it is to them. I hate it when my wife reorganizes the house. But, as a community, how are we going to go into the future by not changing? So I've been really impressed by the respectful dialogue. I came initially thinking I'd be snarky about, NIMBYs. But here we are, and I'd like to help participate in the future. I think this would be a wonderful opportunity. And I hope the developer, notwithstanding the negative attitudes, is willing to work with us to make this project honor the history, honor the environment, and work to develop better transit, which kind of relies on denser housing. We can't get better bus service if everybody's got a quarter of an acre that they live on, and then we have to drive our kids to school and they can't walk, they can't bike, and it's dangerous. I'd much rather live in a place that has mixed density, mixed housing, where there's neighbors, we have kids in the neighborhood. Since I moved here into our neighborhood 15, 20 years ago, we've gone from a dozen or so families with kids within 2 blocks to 2. And we're not going to improve that by just saying, no, don't do this kind of development. So that's all I got.
Good evening. My name is Evan. I am a homeowner in the neighborhood about 1.5 blocks away from the proposed project. And when I first bought the house about 5 years ago, I was really stoked to learn that there was this piece of history in my neighborhood. And only after did I find out this chain link fence and what I consider a fire hazard, really. Then every time I pass by there, it's really sad to see a piece of history neglected like that. That being said, I've also had the privilege over my lifetime to be able to do some traveling in some incredible historical places around the world. I went to Granada last year. I've been to Greece, and I've been to Mexico City. I mean, a lot of Oaxaca, all these incredible historical sites that have built up over not just centuries, but millennia, where there's preserved historical sites, and the cities and the communities and the towns and the villages still grow up around those sites, even though they still exist. And even if I found a historical site that was beautiful and historical and had so much of an incredible story to it, and it was surrounded by buildings that were built up, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, it didn't diminish the meaning or significance, but they did so in a really careful way to make sure that those places were preserved. So my request, I actually really am excited about this, the prospect of new housing in my neighborhood. We definitely need housing. This is the kind of housing that I think this community needs. Santa Rosa is going to need more housing, and I would much rather it be dense, walkable, projects like this, as opposed to sprawling cul-de-sacs of suburbs, taking up even more land, farmland, historical sites, all of that. So I think this is exactly the kind of project we need in exactly the right place. But my request to all you is just maybe do some research, looking at some of these older towns, villages, and cities to find out how they were able to preserve the character, make it accessible, celebrate that history, but still allow for what every healthy, vibrant community needs to do, which is grow. So thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Andrew Kleist. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Santa Rosa. I was born and raised here, went to Montgomery High School and Herbert Slater Middle School. Very sad to see my middle school close. After the 2017 fire, I lost a lot of friends who had to move away out of this community. And while I have a great deal for the respect for the site, the location, the history, there's so much complexity to it. And I hope that in this project, that they look into that with respect for the cultural heritage of that site. But I do also appreciate that folks like myself, I would love to raise a family in this community. I would love to continue to call Santa Rosa my home. But I look around, I don't find any place that I can really afford here. And I feel like might have to say goodbye to my community that I've been raised in my whole life. So I just really appreciate that as we go through this process, that there's going to be a lot of interest in respecting the heritage of that site, the location, the history, the people who would live there. But I also hope that they think about the people who will live there in the future as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, left podium.
Hi, my name's Hannah. Sorry, I came a little bit late to the meeting, so maybe you guys already addressed this. But are there going to be, I was wondering what the rental costs or the costs for low income versus market level units would be in this proposed plan. Again, this might be, you might have already addressed this, or it might have already been in the minutia, but do you guys have that already? Okay. So, are there going to be low income units in this proposal? Or
Yes.
entry-level units,
Yes,
as people were saying?
Yes, the project is currently proposed as for sale product, and it would have to over 10% of them being BMRs, which are reserved at lower income levels.
For how
And all-
long? Indefinitely?
I believe there's a 55-year regulatory agreement that runs with it as a standard for
Okay.
affordable.
And will we know what the costs, would that be coming out later, like what the actual costs are?
It actually adjusts every year as AMI and whatnot increase and interest rates increase or decrease, those values change.
Okay. And again, I came a little bit late to the meeting. Are there any totally wheelchair accessible units planned? Like if someone had a wheelchair, walker, like,
Yeah, there's a certain number that would be adaptable. In essence,
what's adaptable?
that you can meet accessibility standards from, I'm not an architect by code, but you can meet, what's that? Yeah, 10% of the units are adaptable, meaning that 10% of them can be adapted to fully facilitate accessibility requirements.
Okay, so, but you're proposing townhomes, right?
Correct.
With stairs?
Yes.
For 3 stories?
Yes, and you can
So you're
adapt it.
basically saying someone's gonna have to get a Stairmaster up 3 stories in order to access all of the house?
You can have lifts, absolutely.
So like elevators or like a stair, like a stair lift
stair lift.
going all the way up?
Stair lift.
So that's how, okay, all right. I was wondering, could you bring up the plans again? You mentioned that you had floor plans. Oh, I'm so sorry. You know what? I can see to them. So,
Yes.
yeah, sorry about that. I was just wondering.
We could also, at the end of the meeting, the applicant and staff will be available for any additional questions. So we'd be happy to look at the floor plans in more detail afterwards. Will that
Sounds great.
work? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, over here to the right.
Good evening. My name is Joe Salinas. I'm a tribal member from Kashaya Sturs Point Band of Pomo Indians. I also been the great dance group leader for Sonoma County Pomo Dancers for the last 20 years in Santa Rosa. I'm also working with the city of Santa Rosa to hopefully rename Flat Rock Park to Pitacomtera Park. That's the tribe that was decimated and is no longer around because of smallpox and colonizers. There's not a tribal member around for that tribe. Pitacomtera, you don't hear about them because they were all decimated. But talking with the archaeologist, he was telling me in 2004 how there was a body found on that property and that they understand that there's native bodies there. And a lot of people's concern here is for the east side of that property. My concern is for the west side of that property. the native village that's there. I feel it needs to be protected. I feel like that whole property should be preserved. I feel like it's a slap in the face that I got to miss Monday Night Football. I don't want to be here at this meeting. I would love for the city of Santa Rosa to respect the indigenous people of this land. You shouldn't even be listening to these developers. But instead, here you are. You already know the history. The city already knows the history of that land. You already know that there's a dead body already been found there. Well, if that's the case and you guys are comfortable with that, then why don't you remove all the plots at Santa Rosa Cemetery and build townhomes there? Yeah, I don't think that's very polite. I think it's rude and a slap in the face that the city of Santa Rosa, you have a river named after Russians, nothing named after indigenous people. You don't protect the land. You don't name nothing after none of us. There's nothing. LCLN High School is what we get. Not a park, not a street, nothing. And here I am again, talking to the city about respecting the indigenous people. I got the list of sacred sites that this land that we're on right now is the largest sacred site in the Valley of Santa Rosa before all this was built on it. But again, that was built on this land because there's no respect for the indigenous people. If there was, then people would look at these things. Would you want people building over your ancestors' graves? Would you want people to be digging on your ancestors' property like that, where you know it's documented where they've been and they lived and they dwelled? It's just trying to get recognition. The same thing with Flat Rock Park and named that Bitacantera Park. It's just trying to do what I can to educate the city of Santa Rosa, the community of Sonoma County, that this is the indigenous people. These are the people that were once here. This is our history of the land that we all love to live on, breathe on, and grow on. And this is a part of that history. Let's respect that. Let's honor the people that were once here. Let's respect their property, respect their ancestors, do the best we can to build in other locations that we know there's no history at. There's a whole lot of this land on this earth that you guys could find more places to build at. Sorry to say if it's not close to the freeway. That's all I ask is just that. I'm just looking to do what I can to acknowledge the sites throughout Santa Rosa and do what I can to help not only the Native kids that I help, but also kids in our community in general have self-respect, self-identity, and to be educated of the history of our land that we live on. And instead of destroying certain sites like that is sacred, like that area, not for only the ancestral village that was there, but also Maria Correa Adobe, that it's all there. And why can't you preserve it? And like they were saying, maybe build a museum there to help educate others that this is the history of Santa Rosa. You guys all love so much. This is the people. This is the original people. This is the Bitacantera people that are no longer here no more. I had to learn this stuff on my own, studying through UC Berkeley, not from the Santa Rosa JC, not from our educational system, but on my own. But thank you guys. Hope you guys can think about that moving forward.
Just a quick time check. We have about 5 more minutes for this segment of the meeting. But again, we will have staff and the applicant team available after the public comment period to answer any additional questions. All right, without further ado, go over to the left.
My name is Ellen Bowen, and I am the president of the Saturday Afternoon Club. We are a historical club founded in 1894 in Santa Rosa, and we advocate for recognition and honoring women that are a part of our history. I ditto the speaker before me about his concerns about Native American indigenous people living on that property. He said everything I already think, so I'm just going to add to it some information that I think you need to understand about Maria Carrillo. I'll preface that by saying that I'm especially concerned about how women have been ignored and written out of history. It happened long before the current administration set that as a goal. Maria Carrillo is one of those women that I think has really not gotten her due. And I want to add to the story, a little bit of the story and some more specific details so you understand who it is that you're talking about when we talk about, when you think about Maria Carrillo. I've lived in Santa Rosa for 46 years, and so that's a pretty long time. But I still am amazed at how many people don't even know who she is other than a high school is named after her. So I want to tell you her story because I think she's a remarkable woman that there's a lot in her story that sets an example and tells us about women's history. She and her husband had 13 children. One of them died in infancy. Two of them had already launched on their own. And the family lived in San Diego, not LA. They lived in San Diego because Maria's husband was part of the Mexican military. They lived a very comfortable life and were considered part of the upper crust of society. Her husband died sort of suddenly and left his estate to his brother and left Maria and her children penniless. They had nothing. And fortunately, one of Maria's daughters was married to General Mariano Vallejo, who you may recognize his name because there are structures in Sonoma County in the area that recognize him. He suggested that Maria and her children come to Sonoma County. They could stay at the Sonoma Mission with him where he was and where his military establishment was. And he would assure that she got a land grant and would be able to support herself and her children and make a go of it. Now, this is like the early 1800s. I'd like to think that we're a whole lot farther along than that, but she's an amazing role model for women. So she didn't really have a whole lot of options. She and her children walked from San Diego up to Sonoma. They stayed in Sonoma while Vallejo and Maria organized how they were going to plan out the adobe. She hoisted up her skirts and she helped build the adobe alongside of her two teenage sons and indigenous workers and military people she was able to hire. I think that's phenomenal. And I think that she is an exceptional role model for us. And my concern about the park is it seems to me like it's going to be just kind of fenced off, maybe to protect it. I think it needs to be presented and preserved as a showcase of local history and used as an educational opportunity so that children that live here can come. I think it's fourth grade is when they learn about California history. They can come to that property. They can find out how the indigenous people lived there. They can find out how adobe bricks were made, and they can learn about the Carrillo family. This is a treasure. And there are lots of other buildings that are happening in Santa Rosa to address housing needs. I'm not anti-housing. I'm not even NIMBY. I just am really concerned that the historic value of this site is being compromised. And thank you.
Okay, we are at 6:30. We're going to take a couple more comments and then we'll go ahead and conclude the meeting. And again, staff will be available along with the applicant to answer any additional questions afterwards. So go ahead.
My name is Lori Bayan. I'm a United Methodist pastor and creator of Sacred Ground, an audio guide to scenic vistas, parks, and trails in Sonoma County and other parts of Northern California, available on a free smartphone app, which strives to tell the stories that I believe the rocks and trees would tell us if they could, of those who have lived here before, and the impacts of climate change on local ecosystems. It then guides listeners in a mindfulness practice and suggests ways that they can be more respectful visitors to these places. Flat Rock Park is one of the locations on the guide, and although I'm not a resident of the neighborhood, which will be impacted by the Creekside development, I have an interest in this area, which is not only of significance to early Santa Rosa history, but to prehistory. I believe that the land holds pieces of the trauma that people experience on it. And I believe that nature also offers healing to those who have experienced harm. When I bring groups to Flat Rock, I invite them to listen to the sound of the water, to use their imaginations, and to tune into the rhythms of nature to receive a gift of healing from the Creator. This area, which some have called the heart of Santa Rosa, with the historic adobe and all its stories, the church and the footprint of what was intended to be the last of the California missions, holds the potential, if open to the public and well-nurtured, to be a place of reconciliation and healing for the many ills wrought through history and continuing to the present day. Genocide and erasure, racism, classism, violence, and political division. A collaboration of interfaith and tribal groups, public and private and nonprofit agencies united for the greater good could be a blessing, not only for those who live in the neighborhood, but for the entire Santa Rosa community. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take one more final comment.
Yeah, my name's Brian Much. I actually live on Carrillo Street. Didn't plan that. Did have the privilege and honor of serving on the Heritage Board in the mid-2000s when the prior project came through. So I was very familiar with a lot of the aspects of the park plan. So hearing that it's been revised since, curious if the Heritage Board's looked at any of that or the Design Review Board as they're now joined into. As those plans were updated and changed, that was a significant effort back in the day. I may not have fully supported all aspects of the plan, but getting to the park plan to bring in a historical architectural adobe expert named Gil Sanchez, who you brought up earlier, was really one of the home runs of the project, seeing the care and the respectful honor to the adobe structure itself. After that, a lot of us put effort into the efforts you heard Alex talk about earlier in the nomination process in the mid-2010s. A lot of that was done with the concept in mind of maybe there could be a better future. Maybe we could find partnerships and develop an opportunity to create something like a heritage park, third grade local history, fourth grade California history. I'm a traveler from Philadelphia, and I found that this place has immense power. Along the way, this current project, I'm cutting through the rest of my notes, apologies, listening to a lot of the other concerns, and I've only had a little bit of time to prep up on some of these, but SB 131, if that really is to play here, seems like there's a lot of multiple concerns here, so the near miss doesn't seem to hit. AB 130 and its timeline, seems like that's why we don't have a submitted project yet, because there's some really fast timelines once a 130 gets accepted. I'm curious how the applicant is going to handle the results of this phase 1 environmental site assessment that's requirement of AB 30, given what we've heard tonight for the significant and unique archaeological resource as per CEQA. Yeah, I'm just going to conclude there. And as always, if anyone from Swenson's interested, we're getting ready to launch a GoFundMe. 5.2 million, I think the newspaper said you bought it. So we're happy to have a conversation. So happy to find a way to find a bridge.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to the end of the meeting. We have up here on the slide the QR code if you would like to register your name to stay in contact about any updates related to the project. We encourage you to submit any comments on the comment card that's been provided. You can also email Kristen A directly if you would like to send your comments to her. Otherwise, we will be around here until for another about 10-15 minutes if you have any questions that you would like to ask of staff or the applicant. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your participation.